Let's go. The Prisoner of Azkaban. This book starts off with Harry Potter back with the Dursleys because his friends don't love him, and their Dursleys are having an aunt coming over to visit. Now, this aunt begins almost immediately insulting Harry's actual real parents and calling them all kinds of horrible things. Harry responds to this by inflating her like a balloon and then running away. So, things are escalating in his home life a little bit, as they are in the actual book. As Harry runs away, he's now kind of just wandering around, and he gets a black dog approaching him and kind of aggressively coming at him, but the night bus luckily shows up and picks him up. The night bus being a magical bus that kind of serves the wizarding world for wizards in need, and it takes him to Diagon Alley. Diagon Alley being the kind of midpoint between the Muggle world, where wizards have been going so far, and Hogwarts. For us, it's kind of the middle ground. Now, he actually doesn't get in trouble for this because apparently bigger problems are coming up for the Ministry of Magic. As it turns out, a murderer named Sirius Black has escaped. Now, when Harry arrives in Diagon Alley, he meets with the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, who warns Harry that Sirius Black is hunting him because Sirius Black serves Lord Voldemort. Harry just kind of stays in Diagon Alley while he's waiting for school to get ready to start, and he eventually meets up with Ron and Hermione, Ron having a rat and Hermione having a cat, and apparently the animals are not getting along, and Hermione and Ron kind of start fighting, and they fight throughout the entire book. And Harry actually overhears Ron's parents talking about how Sirius Black is going to be hunting him down, and it's kind of just building tension and a lot of suspense for Sirius Black and who he is. But it's time for them to go to school, and so they all get on the train while they're going to Hogwarts. Unfortunately, these creatures called Dementors show up and start going through the train. Dementors work at the prison called Azkaban and are looking for Sirius Black. For some reason, they mess with Harry Potter, and Harry Potter passes out, but a sleeping man next to him wakes up and stops the Dementors, this man being Professor Lupin, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Harry regains consciousness. Professor Lupin is furious that the Dementors came and harassed Harry and says he'll pretty much handle it. Lupin seems like a cool guy, but the train arrives at Hogwarts, and it's time for the school year to begin, so classes begin. In one of Harry's classes, he has a professor that foresees that Harry's going to die because they see a black dog in his tea leaves, which is kind of a very ominous omen to be given to a kid still, essentially. I think Harry's around 14, 15 at this point. They go into Hagrid's class about creatures and things like that, and he introduces them to hippogriffs. One of the hippogriffs named Buckbeak gets mad at Malfoy because Malfoy's being Malfoy and injures Malfoy. Malfoy overplays his injury trying to get Hagrid fired and the hippogriff executed because he's just that kind of guy. From here, we get to see Professor Lupin's Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Now, he's having a good time with it, and he's having his students go up and fight a thing called a Bogart, which turns into your greatest fear. We see some kind of fun fears, but he doesn't let Harry do it, and the class kind of ends with Harry not being able to fight the Bogart. But now it's time to go to Hogsmeade. Hogsmeade's kind of like where the older students get to go outside of school. That's kind of really fun, but they need a permission slip from their parents. Harry doesn't have any parents, so he's not allowed to go because that's the way the school deals with orphans. So instead of going to Hogsmeade, Harry actually goes to meet with Professor Lupin to have some tea. There, he and Lupin kind of bond a little bit, and it kind of appears that Lupin's a good guy, but Lupin even says that he will not let Harry fight the Bogart because he's afraid that Lord Voldemort would actually be what the Bogart turns into. Harry says that he actually fears Dementors more than Lord Voldemort, which is very dumb, but he does. And Snape then shows up and gives Professor Lupin some tea, and Harry doesn't like this because he doesn't trust Snape, so he's like, what are you giving him? It's important down the road. Later that night, Sirius Black actually breaks into Hogwarts and slashes the painting that is guarding the Gryffindor common areas for their students. So all the students now have to sleep in the Great Hall, and all the teachers are going and searching through the entire school. But after this, quickly there is a Quidditch match between Hufflepuff and Gryffindor. Harry is kind of doing well for the game, but he actually spots a gigantic black dog, and after that, almost immediately, a horde of Dementors come and harass him, and he passes out. His broomstick breaks. He doesn't die, but he is mildly injured, and Gryffindor loses to Hufflepuff because they cannot lose to Slytherin. But now he is a broomless Quidditch player. After he regains consciousness, though, Professor Lupin tells him the reason that the Dementors affect him so much is because his past is so painful, so the Dementors have so much to feed off of. Gets kind of really intense. After this incident is over, though, Fred and George, Ron's brothers, actually give Harry what is called the Marauders Map, essentially a map that shows you the location of everyone within the school so you can avoid being caught. This paired with his invisibility cloak is a great thing for Harry to have. He also can see all the hidden and secret passageways throughout Hogwarts now, which is a great advantage. Also is the best magical item that I wish I had throughout the entire Harry Potter universe. It's so cool. So Harry uses this map along with his invisibility cloak to go into Hogsmeade and meet up with Ron and Hermione and actually get to start chilling with them and just secretly going into a place where he technically shouldn't be, of course, like he always does. While in Hogsmeade, though, Harry Potter follows the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, without being spotted using his invisibility cloak, and overhears him talking about how Sirius Black is actually responsible for his parents' death, as well as a man named Peter Pettigrew. So this just got super personal for Harry. And from here, we actually learn that Buckbeak has been sentenced to death and that Hagrid is very inconsolable because it is such a creature he's bonded with, and it makes you hate Malfoy even more. When the winter holidays kind of come around, Harry receives a package in the mail, and it's a firebolt, essentially the best broom on the market that anyone can afford, but Hermione tells McGonagall about it, and his broom is taken away because they're afraid it could be a cursed thing actually sent from Sirius Black because it's from a mystery sender. So now Harry's a little mad at Hermione, and Ron's mad at Hermione because her cat keeps harassing his rat. Harry actually begins training with Professor Lupin with a spell called a Patronus to help him fight off Dementors if they ever start messing with him again, but he's not very good at it, and he can't really successfully make one. After a certain amount of time, it is deduced that the firebolt has no curses on it, so he is okay to have it, so McGonagall gives it back to him just in time for another Quidditch match. At another night, Sirius Black breaks into the Gryffindor common room again and actually slashes Ron's bed, which is a very intense thing to do, but he apparently was trying to kill Harry and accidentally ran into Ron. Hagrid actually invites Ron and Harry to have tea with him and scolds them for pretty much excluding Hermione for the broom and the rat thing, basically saying, look, the rat's not her fault, and the broom thing was a smart move, you guys are being unfair. And they feel a little guilty, but not extremely so. Snape catches them on their way back and actually confiscates the Marauders Map from Harry, kind of furious with him for having it, but Lupin intervenes and eventually gives Harry the map back. But Lupin's still mad at Harry, saying it's dumb for him to be endangering his life, going out like this, and having items like this as well. After this, Hermione steps up kind of as a badass when she overhears Malfoy saying it's a good thing that Buckbeak is going to be executed, and she slaps the shit out of him. She also has kind of been going through a lot with an extra course load, all the events going on, and her doing a bunch of work behind the scenes to try and figure out what's going on with Sirius Black. We all just appreciate Hermione all around. That same professor who predicted that Harry was going to die also then predicts that Voldemort's servants are coming back and will soon be arriving, which is, again, dear God, this woman needs to stop. They visit Hagrid once again, and they actually find Ron's rat hanging out at the cabin, but they have to leave when they see the executioners coming down to kill Buckbeak because they're not supposed to be there. So they sneak out the back when, well, the execution of Buckbeak happens, and we're all very sad. As they're walking back to school, a large black dog pounces on Ron and actually drags him to the Whomping Willow and takes him into a tunnel underneath. And Hermione and Harry, of course, run after him. And they go through this tunnel. It's a long way. And then they finally get to the other side. They get to a cursed haunted house called the Shrieking Shack, where the black dog turns into Sirius Black. The trio successfully disarms Sirius Black, and Harry seems to be incredibly angry and about to kill Sirius, but is disarmed when Lupin walks in the room and uses a spell to make Harry stop what he's doing. And then the trio are very shocked when they see Lupin embrace Sirius as a friend, and Harry immediately thinks, oh my god, Lupin's not on her side. Everyone kind of calms down a bit, and Lupin explains to the trio that Sirius Black did not kill Harry's parents. He was framed by a man named Peter Pettigrew. Everyone in their old friend group back in school, including Harry's dad, learned how to transform into certain animals. For Sirius Black, it was a black dog, but for Peter Pettigrew, it was a rat. And it turns out that Ron's rat is Peter Pettigrew. So Ron's rat suddenly turns back into this guy named Peter Pettigrew. Ron's shocked, but they all managed to take him hostage and kind of keep him under guard. Snape also showed up during this time as well, but they disarmed him and knocked him unconscious, the trio did, which is technically assault on Professor, but it's never really has any serious negative consequences for them. They all begin to leave the Shrieking Shack together, going to go clear Sirius Black's name, Lupin with Peter Pettigrew under, guard, but as they're leaving, the full moon hits, and it turns out that Lupin is a werewolf, and that's why he was drinking the tea before, because it prevented him from turning, but unfortunately, he didn't get the tea from Snape this time, so he is actually successfully fully turning into a werewolf. Sirius Black turns into a dog to try and fight him off, but it's kind of intense, and the trio run away, but Sirius Black is injured during this, and Harry's trying to guard him. The werewolf is scared off. Some Dementors, though, start attacking Harry. Patronus comes out of nowhere, the same Patronus his dad had, and saves Harry by scaring away the Dementors. I kind of rushed through that a little bit, but that's the gist of what happens. So now Harry passes out again, and again Harry wakes up in the infirmary. He hears Almost immediately, he hears Snape and Cornelius Fudge talking about how Sirius Black is going to be executed by Dementors very soon. He and Hermione protest, saying that, look, he's actually a good guy. He was framed, but no one believes him, and Sirius Black is going to be executed. Just then, Dumbledore comes in, kind of shoos everyone else out, and says, hey, Hermione, basically in a more mysterious, much more dramatic way than I'm doing, why don't you use your time travel device that you've actually been using this whole semester to go back the amount of time you need to prevent all these horrible things from happening. And Hermione unveils that, yes, she does have a time travel thing that will never come in handy again throughout the rest of the series for some reason, and wasn't used in the many points that it could have been used recently. But okay, Hermione. And they use it to go back a few hours to prevent all the events that happened. And they do successfully sneak over when Buckbeak's about to be executed and pull Buckbeak away. Then they watch the group that they are with leave the Shrieking Shack and intervene, and it's actually Harry that casts the Patronus that saves him from being killed by the Dementors. So Harry actually saved himself. It wasn't his dad, even though Harry thought it might have been his dad, which is kind of sad for him, but also kind of cool because now he can successfully cast a Patronus. They then take Buckbeak and ride him to where Sirius Black is being held prisoner in Azkaban, free him, and Sirius Black gets to fly off on the back of a hippogriff, being safe. That is pretty much the end of the school year for them as well, and pretty quickly after this, they get back on the train to go home. Once again, Harry has to go home to the Dursleys because no one loves him enough to stop that. Though while he's on the train, he does get a letter from Sirius Black saying, it was me who sent you that firebolt. I hope you like it. Here's a pet owl for Ron, and a permission slip for you to go to Hogsmeade next year, and basically saying that he loves him and he's proud of him and all this stuff. So Sirius Black is now a very serious father figure for Harry. Even though he can't be with him, he has to go back with the Dursleys to be abused for another summer. And that is the third book and my personal favorite in the Harry Potter series. I hope you're all enjoying this. I know these videos haven't been getting a ton of views, but I'm just going to do them because they're kind of easy and they're fun. So hope you're all having a good day. Peace.